So thank you very much for joining us today to share your experiences. So tell us a bit about yourself, about TUI Group, and about your role.
Sure. So hi everybody, I'm Elliot, Antrobus-Holder, the Group Head of Digital Products at TUI. Been there about 18 months, and prior to that was at Barclays in a very similar role, and also HSBC prior to that. And my experience really is focused on driving kind of large-scale digital transformation through fairly complicated, big, meaty, multinational organisations, and trying to make that change stick. I kind of fell into the industry really when I was at university. I was fairly, you could call it entrepreneurial, you could call it lazy, because I decided it was easier to build and monetize websites and mobile apps than actually was to get a part-time job, and ended up being actually a fairly successful business, and kind of dropped me into various roles and kind of got me where I am today.
What's your loss?
No. Although I do kind of think, I missed out on being a billionaire. I don't know whether it's a good thing or not. But anyway, my role at TUI is very focused on two things. And for those who don't know, TUI is actually the world's largest travel and tourism business, very, very European based, and we're going through a large rebrand at the moment. And with that comes a lot of kind of digitalisation and transformation. And my role is really focused in two key areas. The first one being the delivery of new products and services through digital channels. Yeah. So things like digital wallet. These are things that you can see it on the screen now. Sorry, it's not very sexy, but it is really a very important project for us, focused on kind of saving customers' payment details, where we can then use those for one-click purchases in the future. So delivering new products and services like that are going to help grow the top line, drive revenue, and increase kind of sales and conversion. And secondly, arguably the much harder part of my role is focused on that transformational change within TUI. So moving us from a very project focused organisation into one that's much more customer focused and much more product focused as well.
Okay. And when you guys think of how moving to a product-centric approach is going to help you, what business outcomes are you actually aiming to achieve?
So ultimately, with all these things, they're focused on driving value for the business, and that either comes in the form of revenue growth for the business or driving increased customer satisfaction. Okay. So they're the ultimate goals. But for me, how we achieve those is actually more important. Yeah. For me, it's speed to market. So we need to be delivering much more quickly. Yeah. There's not necessarily a burning platform that's driving that within TUI, but we have a focus on actually our customers' expectations changing very quickly. Yeah. The industry's changing. There's much more competition than there was, and that's forcing us to need to move much more quickly and deliver value much more quickly, and realise that. Secondly, I guess the focus is on I guess delivering new products and services as well that come with that. Yeah. And I guess the change that comes with that in the teams themselves to actually make that happen.
Okay. By the way, I'm obviously asking Elliot questions throughout, but if you have questions, please just submit them, and we'll come to the end. We'll get the opportunity to ask Elliot to answer them as best he can. So, what does product management mean? It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So what does it mean in TUI from your perspective?
Well, let me start with, I guess, defining what we mean by a product. Yeah. So for me personally, it's a thing, an entity, certainly within the digital space, that is constantly evolving and changing and needs to keep up with customer demands and needs. Okay. Versus a project, which for me has a kind of fixed start and end date, and then maybe doesn't need to be touched prior to that. Yeah. In a product area where we have people focused on constant evolution of those things, yeah. They're very focused on what the customer wants and needs from that product, yeah. What the outcomes of that are, and how they can deliver value very quickly. So always looking at what does the customer want, yeah. How can we deliver what the customer wants very, very quickly, yeah. Ideally incrementally in small bite-sized chunks, yeah. And then measuring that against actually what do we want to achieve, okay. And have we actually delivered what we set out to do, okay. And doing that very, very quickly and incrementally in small kind of bite-sized chunks.
Okay, excellent. And from your point of view, why have you been, obviously we met, as I said, about a year and a half ago, it was pretty early stages. why have you been pushing it championing it so passionately within TUI as opposed to how TUI used to work?
I guess for me personally, again, being focused on moving traditional organisations into the kind of new digital world, this is critical for me and for TUI to be a sustainable business long term.
Right.
So the world is changing at a pace where, frankly, we need to move as quickly as the world is changing.
Yeah.
Customers' expectations are moving again equally as quickly.
Yeah.
And for us to keep up and keep pace with that change, we need to change internally how we work.
Yeah.
This way of working in this model is much better adapted at being able to work quickly.
Yeah.
And again, realising that value very, very, very quickly as well.
Okay.
So in a product-based approach, I guess you see the value of what you're actually doing much, much quicker than you would do in a project kind of version of the world, where you might not see that value for maybe 1 or 2 years once the actual project drops and delivers.
Yeah.
Being able to test, learn, have something in front of your customers really, really quickly is so super important.
Yeah.
That's not to say everything we do is successful every single time.
Sure.
But we can get something out there to the customers very quickly, see whether it works. If it does, let's scale it. If it doesn't, let's can it. Move on to the next thing.
Okay. And has competition driven you towards this in any way?
To a large extent, yes.
Okay.
So again, within our business, I guess we're a very successful organisation still, very profitable. So arguably, you could say you're very profitable. Why change? Whatever you're doing is working clearly very, very well. But I guess from a long-term sustainability perspective, we can see the market's changing. There's a lot more competition. There are many startups coming in, and actually we see this as an opportunity to further cement our kind of position in the marketplace, deliver more value, explore new business opportunities, move into new territories and verticals. So it provides a lot more opportunities.
Okay, super. So when we think practically, Elliot, obviously the market in general is talking a lot about changing to be product orientated. What approach did you take, and is there any pointers that you would give to the guys that are online?
I guess it's important to point out, I guess, in TUI and in previous organisations I've worked in, there's always been a lot of scepticism.
Okay.
It's a fairly different approach and different way of working. So to start with, getting buy-in from both senior leadership and those that you're working with on a day-to-day basis is really important.
Yeah.
And for me, rather than talking about all the buzzwords and methodologies, I've been very focused on kind of walk the walk. Yeah. Show people this in action, and by doing and running kind of work in this way, people suddenly see the value of it because they can see it, they can experience it, they can touch it, they can feel it, they can be part of it. Yeah. And suddenly people understand. So what I've been doing personally is I've been working in this way and delivering new products in this way so people can see it happening, demonstrating the value it delivers. Yeah. And then to get to scale, obviously we've been working very closely with you guys to support the product management teams. We've taken 60 people through product pathway, and that's really important because it works in a very similar way to that. Yeah. So it allows product owners and product managers going through those courses to actually take an idea, do the discovery, put it in front of customers, to then actually build that out in a semi-real life scenario, and take it all the way through, ideally, into something that's customer facing at the end of it. Yeah. So they actually get to experience that whole product life cycle, but kind of condensed into 10 weeks. Yeah. And that gives them the tools and the framework they then need, then take that back into the business. Yeah. So that's the important piece for me now, is how do we get it to scale and embed it. Yeah. And actually, to your early point, is how do we make the business change long term. Yeah. That community and ways of working, embedding that within the business, they need to feel like it's a profession, it's there, it's an entity within the business, and that it's important. Yeah. And the sharing of kind of good news stories as well just helps that kind of snowball effect of getting it embedded within the business, and that's really important also, and that's where the community practice comes in. Yeah,
I remember one of the at the end of one of the pathways. So basically, the participants are bringing value propositions through each of the elements of desirability, viability, and feasibility. And I remember attending one of them with the leadership team, where the participants were presenting their ideas, and it was amazing the depth that they had gone to. Yeah. But one of some of the participants were commenting on was getting the getting the opportunity to have the audience with the senior with the senior leadership team was a big motivation for them, because a lot of times the ideas are at the factory floor. They just don't see the light of day.
And since then, it's been a great motivation for the leadership team as well. It's been one of their favourite days.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. They really relish the opportunity now to come in and sit in on those sessions to see actually the value that's delivered and being able to be part of the process.
Yeah.
But it is amazing really to see it in action. And in fact, a number of those projects that come out of the back of the pathway are actually progressing now. Yeah. We're seeing those go into delivery. We're seeing those teams working in different ways. Yeah. And we're seeing the value that's come out of that. That's in a very short period as well.
Yeah. One of the things for maybe the participants on the webinar to think about, of the majority of ideas and value propositions that people were bringing at the very early stages of the journey, the vast majority of them pivoted their idea quite quickly, because some of the underlying assumptions that they had when they ran the experiments to validate those assumptions, they found out that they weren't right, and they ended up changing their ideas throughout.
And actually, I remember having some conversations with those teams at the time. They were quite gutted because they felt like they failed because their idea wasn't successful. Yeah. For me, that's completely the opposite. Actually, finding out at that stage that it's not a feasible or viable idea, fine, great. Yeah. Bank it, learn from it, move on. That's absolutely fine. That's as good an outcome as any.
Yeah, I think sometimes individuals have confirmation bias, so they're looking for things to validate their ideas as opposed to really running the experiments to find out if their assumptions are true. How would you communicate the do's and the don'ts, so the lessons learned so far? And I know you're on this journey, so it's not a done.
Yeah, and we're by no means finished on this journey a long way. This is just kind of the journey so far. I would say for me personally, you can't underestimate the value of taking people on this journey with you. I think there have been too many times I've been in organisations that have been burnt with management consultants, selling them framework, an idea, a methodology, and then disappearing off. So being able to actually take your teams, take senior leadership on that journey with you, and for them to be able to see and experience this firsthand, see the value that comes out the back of that is more important than anything. So walking the walk for me is the most important thing. I avoid wherever possible any sort of buzzwords. It's just, here is how we're going to work, here's what the outcome's going to be, and this is what's going to happen. And then just literally say, look, let's give me 10 weeks, here's an idea, and at the end of those 10 weeks, you'll see the values out the back of that. Puts a bit of pressure on being successful, but I'll say in all the times that I've done it, it's been more valuable than anything I've ever done. And it's amazing when you walk into groups of C-suite leaders with an idea that in a few weeks you've taken in front of customers, you've prototyped, you've built something physical that they can play with. So we built an app, my example earlier of that digital wallet, we did exactly that. We went out, tested it with customers, built in a couple of weeks a working prototype app and website. You wouldn't believe the excitement when it was presented to the board. Just because they had something physical to play with. They could see it working, they could see how it could fit into the customer journey experience. It was supported by, to be fair, a high-level kind of business case on a one-page, a kind of lean canvas type thing. Just said, here we go, here's the costs, here's the value we see in it. And again, 3 months later, we're now starting to roll that out into businesses. So it's a great example of kind of the process in action, and that's what I'm using at the moment to kind of embed this further within the group.
And it's just popping into my head now, but as an international business, obviously a change like this as cultural aspects to it, was there a difference in dealing with the German market or the Benelux market or the UK market when changing people?
Absolutely, and some markets are more bought into this way of working than others, and this, I guess, is always the case. For me, it's equally tricky as well, working cross departments. So you experience those cultural and processual kind of challenges, because for this truly to be successful, it needs multiple departments in the business who are working together. So not only have we got those kind of cross-border challenges, kind of cultural ways of working, but again, you can get through those. And again, typically once people get to experience it and kind of see the value at the back of it, it becomes a very easy conversation. It's then just a case of kind of guiding people in the right direction.
Yeah.
We can tweak it. There's no set way of necessarily working. It's just what works best
Yeah.
for that part of the organisation. But getting all of the different parts of the business to work together effectively, HR, finance, marketing, operations, they all need to be bought in.
Okay.
For it to be truly successful, everybody needs to be part of the conversation, and we need to take all of those teams on that journey as well.
Are you at the stage where you have proven that, or you are proving that, the process has changed?
Are in the process of proving that at the moment. So, and again, going through the pathways at the moment, you start seeing operational people going through, HR teams, marketing, because they need to be working this way also.
Yeah. Okay.
It can't be siloed within either digital teams or the IT teams, because it's going to be very, again, it's cyclical, and within those departments it needs to be business-wide.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, all well and good. Does deliver any benefits for you guys? How would you
so, benefit-wise for me, and where we're focused on, so number one, if we go back to revenue, income, those things, where I'm primarily measuring the value of this. So how are we driving business for the value, and how are we doing that more quickly?
Okay.
Numbers on that I can't really share at the moment, but it's looking very positive. Speed to market is the next one.
Yeah.
So if we look at the typical product versus project approach, and I think we've got a quick slide on this one somewhere, but there's it's really important for me to be able to do stuff very quickly. And you can see on this slide here, actually, if we took my example around the digital wallet, actually we'd probably still be going through the planning phases at the moment. Whereas actually we've got to a point where we built something, we proved it's worked, and we're actually into implementation with the first markets at the moment. And we'll scale it in bite-sized chunks. And we'll take it there. And actually, that's where the real value comes from. Is we will learn very quickly, we will iterate, and then we will build on those iterations bit by bit until we get the whole product and proposition built out in one go. And we'll end up in a better place at the end of it because we've delivered value in staged increments. And actually learned as we've gone along. In the nature of our business and what we do, we find that a lot of the opportunity for improvement is actually what we would term as upstream, even before things get into delivery. But many organizations actually don't start the clock till it hits delivery. And by addressing that upstream process, number one, making sure that you get the right stuff in, but really hammers at the lead time of getting your ideas into market. You spot on that upstream piece. Actually, is probably the most important piece, because there's no lack of good ideas. And knowing which ideas to take forward, to prioritise, to use your very limited development resource that you've got most effectively. It's bloody tricky. And if you can, again, you can prove either via a canvas or through a POC or doing something along those lines to help that prioritisation process and make sure you're always delivering the most valuable development or new product or proposition. That's hugely important.
What impact has it had on so obviously there's a change of the work that people have been doing. Any noticeable impact on staff engagement or?
Absolutely. A key part of this is around empowerment and giving the teams the ability to manage, prioritise, drive their own roadmap, and kind of be owners of their own destiny. So pros and cons of that. So one is we need to equip them with the right skills to be able to run in that way. Because the teams have not historically been able to do that, and I've always described them as almost being kind of mini CEOs. So they are running and the masters of their destiny for that stream of work. They need to be able to have complete control and autonomy of that roadmap, that strategy, that vision, the prioritization, and everything that comes kind of downstream from that and gets fed into the development teams. With that comes a lot of accountability. They need to be able to prove and be completely transparent in what value they're delivering back to the business. And again, that's something historically has been quite tricky to prove.
Just closing the loop.
Absolutely. So how much value have we actually delivered? And that is something that's coming slowly but surely. And with that, again, it's great for teams to be in that position and have that autonomy, that empowerment, and be able to drive product development in that way. But we're getting there.
But Lisa, what's next?
So
you're on a journey. Where to next?
So really now, I think we're at the point where we've proven the case, we're really at the point for how do we scale this.
Okay.
So we've taken a large number of the product teams, so 60 or so, through the product pathway.
Yeah.
We're now at the point where we need to drive this kind of company-wide and drive adoption scale. So that's my next challenge. So we've proven it, proven it works, proven it delivers value. Now, how do we scale it? So that's ongoing at the moment.
Okay. Okay. So thanks very much. It's been super. So there's some questions coming in, and if there's any other questions, then please feel free. We've only a few minutes, I think, a few minutes left. So approach to funding. I knew somebody had asked this.
Yeah. Old chestnut.
Yeah.
So it's, again, this is one that we've not quite nailed yet.
Okay.
We're in the process of doing it, but ultimately the best case to get to is that there are pots of cash sat with those product teams that are tied to outcomes of the business. So KPIs, where, for example, almost like a mini P&L. So a product team is there and they're accountable for delivery of X KPIs. They are measured on those KPIs at intervals, be it quarterly, 6 monthly, and they ideally have the empowerment to drive development in line with those KPIs, and then just measure success against them, and then report back on that.
So they choose how they invest the allocated funding to them, and it saves a lot of the business case side.
Ideally, if the process is working and they're prioritising based on the most valuable developments that deliver against the KPIs they're tasked on, then the theory should all work, and they should always be delivering the most valuable outcomes against the KPIs they're tasked on. And then just, again, report back on that in terms of, right, here's the ROI we've delivered for that money we've spent. It moves us away from that whole kind of large chunks of money tied to business cases that are done in the kind of yearly cyclical piece. It's very much then just breaking that up into bite-sized chunks, being much more transparent in terms of the value that's being delivered. And again, just carrying on that cycle, churning it.
So another one that that's been asked is the difference between product manager, a product owner, and a business analyst.
Good question. Good question. And I think there's a lot of, I guess, different interpretations of this out in the market. I can give you my interpretation of it. So a product manager for me is somebody who is there to drive the strategy, the vision, the roadmap, so the very upstream pieces. A product owner is the person that is translating that product strategy, the vision, the roadmap into epics, stories, and then running the delivery of that with the agile teams. So running it through the scrums, and is then measuring success off the back of that. A BA, I guess, is a more traditional term. I guess for somebody who's maybe more focused on gathering requirements, and particularly technical requirements, and feeding those into IT teams. The difference for me in terms of those is, I guess, historically BAs have been quite internally focused on translating requirements for technical teams, whereas the product people, I guess, whether it be a product manager or product owner, are very focused on customers and delivering and prioritizing new actions based on the customer need and the value that comes out of that. Whereas a BA is maybe a bit more project focused and is focused on those technical elements and just translating requirements into technical elements.
One of the anti-patterns that I've observed in organizations is where they are just changing people's job titles. So you used to be a business analyst, now you're a product owner, and don't invest in anything and actually reskilling them. It's quite a popular mistake.
Fundamentally quite different roles.
Absolutely.
In terms of their purpose and where their focus is.
Where do you see the need for projects anymore?
So there are absolutely still need for projects. I don't see that product versus project needs to be one or the other. There's a place for both. I guess for me, I would define a product as something that is ever evolving and changing and needs that constant stream of innovation and change to remain relevant and useful for customers. So it's fast moving. You constantly need to be evolving and changing. Projects, if it's got a fixed start date, an end date, and it's delivering to a fixed scope, you don't, then once it's delivered, you don't need to touch it. Then that's still perfectly got its place. And there could be a mix of both. But there is a place still.
And do you need to be working in an agile way for this to work?
It's going to be hard if you're not.
Okay.
Certainly, for me, the whole purpose of taking the product management approach is that you're delivering in small incremental bite-sized chunks and realizing the value from that. That is completely aligned to the agile way of working.
Okay.
If you're not working that way, I'd say you might be able to take elements to this, but you're not going to be able to adopt it wholeheartedly.
Okay. Okay. Many thanks.
Thank you.